Welcome to the Candle Business Coach Podcast, a show about the craft of candle making and small business. I'm your host, Kirsty and I'm a candle maker, mum of 3 and kindness advocator. Join me as I dive into all things candles and small business and deliver advice and tips to you in episodes every Tuesday and Friday. Are you on the list to get my daily motivation emails? Every day I'll send you a message that is designed to help keep you focused on taking action toward your goals. Sign up using the link in the show notes. Welcome back to the podcast, my friend. In today's episode, we'll be talking through the 5 mistakes every new candle maker makes and unpacking the reasons behind why so many people are susceptible to these pitfalls. As I was researching this episode and thinking about the common mistakes new candle makers make, I realised that I could relate to them because, I made most of them too. My journey into candle making wasn't perfect and there have definitely been challenges along the way, so I wanted to make this episode to help you avoid these same pitfalls. So, the number 1 mistake is starting with way too many supplies. It's so easy to get caught up in the excitement and think you need to buy every fragrance oil and every different type of jars and wicks, instead of starting with just a couple of fragrance oils and one type of jar to make, test, and perfect first. Learning about each aspect of candle making can take a bit of time. In fact, it definitely takes a lot of time. And if you buy an excess of supplies that you may not need or even use, this can be quite costly and definitely not budget friendly. I believe that the fear of missing out is also at play here. Sometimes we have a scarcity mindset, especially after the shortages experienced back during COVID lockdown days, where common household items were constantly unavailable. It's the same with business and candle making supplies. Many suppliers and warehouses had lots of items out of stock, which has a huge impact and knock-on effect for small product-based businesses, including candle businesses. But it also comes down to managing our mindset and not looking through the lens of fear, but rather knowing that there is an abundance all around us. Take today, for example. The fact that you're listening to a podcast right now means that you have so many things to be grateful for. Well, your hearing, for one, but also the fact that you're working towards your goals by taking action towards them. Another point I wanted to touch on that can contribute to buying too many supplies is the unlimited amount of combinations of wax, wicks, containers, colours and fragrances means candle making is a great place to express your creativity. However, adding too many variables or changing things too often limits your chance of succeeding before you understand how everything fits together. It makes the entire process more stressful, overwhelming, and increases your chances of wanting to give up entirely. So, my advice to you is to start off with one type of wax and try a few of your favourite fragrance oils to begin with. Then, once you've got a bit of practice in, you can expand your learning. This is why candle making kits are a great starting point. They provide only what you need to get started. The second mistake is not knowing your why. Before beginning any new venture, it is crucial you know the reasons behind going down that path. Is it to learn a new skill or hobby, generate more income, or maybe because you're looking to start a side hustle? You need to know why so that when motivation fades, and it will always ebb and flow, you can return to your why to help inspire you into taking further action. It's like, have you ever started a new diet or wanted to start a new habit and in the beginning you were feeling super motivated? But then a few days or weeks passed and the motivation you first felt seemed to disappear. Yeah, me too. It's very common and totally normal. You see, motivation is fleeting. It's that rush of adrenaline and anticipation as we feel our dreams and goals are within reach. But when our motivation fades, we need to instead have self-discipline to keep going, especially when things seem tough, to build consistency. Knowing our why helps with this. There's actually a fantastic book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek that goes into a lot more detail as to why it's crucial to know and understand your true motivations in life. I'll leave a link in the show notes to the book if you want to check it out. A good way to begin identifying your why is to journal. Write down your thoughts, goals, and dreams and pinpoint the reasons behind wanting to make candles and grow a candle business. This helps for 2 reasons. 1, you will identify and recognize your true motivations and can create a vision board to help you focus on taking action as often as possible. And two, and this is probably the more important reason, it helps you slow down in the beginning and take a breath rather than rushing ahead and making the number one mistake, which is buying too many supplies. When you start your candle business, there are so many things to consider and research along the way, especially when it comes to choosing the right suppliers. Long Story Short provides all your design and printing needs, from your logo and branding to designing and printing your product labels. The quality is exceptional, the customer service is amazing, and prices are very reasonable. They're the only label company I recommend, so check out their website or send them an email today to get started. hello@longstoryshortdesign.com.au. The number 3 mistake that new candle makers make is not identifying their ideal customer first. Now, I will deep dive into this topic on a future episode, but I wanted to mention it here as well. There's a saying in the business world: if you try to sell to everyone, you end up selling to no one. Think about the type of person that would be excited to buy your candles. What are their likes and dislikes? What are their hobbies? By narrowing down or niching your target audience, you're more likely to generate sales because your ideal customer will feel as though your candles were made specifically for them, rather than trying to cater to everyone's needs, which is basically impossible anyway, given how individual we are all in life and the various combinations of candles that you can create. The 4th mistake is using the wrong amount of fragrance oil. So, adding fragrance oil when making candles can actually be tricky to master. It's not as simple as opening a bottle of fragrance oil and pouring in what you think might work. You need to establish a few things first. Number 1, understanding that there is a specific science behind fragrance loads that change depending on the type of wax you're using and the type of fragrance oil. It's not one size fits all. 2, the percentage of fragrance you add to the melted wax can be anywhere from 6 to 10% depending on several factors. And 3, using the correct mathematical formula to work out the exact amount of fragrance oil you need per jar, depending on the jar size, and then multiplying this equation when making in bulk. Lastly, the number 5th mistake that new candle makers make is not thoroughly testing the candles that they're making. This is so important to making candles, and particularly if you're just starting out, because testing candles is one of the most critical skills of the craft. Thinking that once you've poured a new candle that it's just ready to sell without testing the batch first is a huge mistake and can actually be quite unsafe. The reason is simple: you can't possibly know if your candle meets safety and performance standards until you burn the candle. You need to test every new combination of wax, wicks, fragrance oil, etc. Some wicks will be too small for the jar and you won't get a full melt pull, so you need to wick up. And sometimes the percentage of fragrance oil you use may be too high and clog the wick, so you'll need to change that too. Now, most suppliers have product recommendations on their websites to help guide you, but you must still test along the way. So after your candle has been poured and you've allowed it time to cure or sit and set for the recommended amount of time, which can be up to 2 weeks, you'll then need to light the candle and keep burning it until one of 2 things occurs. Number 1, the candle is completely used up, or number 2, it fails to meet the standard of safety or performance. Testing takes time, my friend, and it can be seen as a costly way of operating your business, but it's time and money well spent, as it means you're thoroughly testing the safety of each batch of candles you make and then selling to your customers. Now, I will preface all of this by saying I'm not a lawyer, and the advice I'm providing is generic and not specific to your exact candle and testing situation. You will need to do your own research depending on where you're from to find out the testing and safety standards in your location. This may vary from state to state and definitely from different countries. So I also wanted to share some thoughts about how making mistakes in life and along your candle journey is actually a good thing. You see, making mistakes, whether it's one or more of the 5 things that I've mentioned in this episode, gives us the opportunity to learn and grow from the experience. Yes, it can be hard and frustrating and even set you back in time or finances, but you will experience the biggest growth and learn the most from making those mistakes. Making mistakes teaches us what doesn't work and spurs you on to discover creative ways of moving forward. Besides, perfection is overrated anyway. Which of these 5 mistakes resonated with you the most? Were they what you were thinking? My hope for you is that during your candle making journey, you don't make too many mistakes, but also I hope you do make at least a few so you can learn and grow from them. Thanks everyone for listening today. I hope this episode added value to your candle making journey. Check out the show notes for all the links mentioned throughout today's episode. And if you would like to submit a question, send me a DM on Instagram at Candle Business Coach. And if you haven't already, download your free copy of my guide, 5 Simple Steps to Start Your Candle Journey. It contains tips and advice before you make your first candle, and details are in the show notes. Lastly, please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And thanks again for listening. Have a beautiful day.